red bullseye right in the middle of when that gun misfired. But then there's, you know, these concentric circles of outside it of bad choices and decisions. And the big thing that both Rory and Iain spoke of, and that was chaos. When you've got group chaos, there is no way to rein that in. You know, there is no hope. There is no rational behavior. There's nothing. And trying to escape it is very difficult because it pulls you back in. Anyway, that's my, and I still go back over that evening just the same way that you're going back over that shooting, and you know, you're going over the guy. What's his name again? Alan what? I think he owes me money, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody want to, or are we done with that subject there? Yeah. You want to add something?
One of the things that is really hard to get through to people is how much luck is involved when things get that shitty. And how often have you seen a modern weapon misfire, Kris, in your life? And that's a huge fucking piece of luck to be alive. And when you go in, no matter how good you are, how well you trained, if the luck breaks the other way, you're dead. And that's the one thing you can never take out of the equation. That makes every time you do this, I want to say act of faith without it sounding all weird and creepy, but voluntarily stepping into one of these situations, you cannot control it. And whether you're going to walk away because something that never happens, like a gun misfiring happened, or you're going to go in completely prepared and slip on something you didn't see and hit the corner on the way down, and it's lights out, game over. You can't control that ever.
Yeah, no, it was just we were talking about a story about my grandfather in the Second World War early today. Just saying about luck. No, it's my maternal grandfather. He was soldier in World War II. My paternal grandfather was in the Navy. Yeah. And we're talking about my grandfather. There's a few things. Obviously, when he dies, he leaves stuff, and this has been left to my mum. But this is the only thing that is left that I want. Right? There's a cigarette case. You've everyone heard the story with the bullet going through it. You know, complete with the kind of Nazi insignia on it. And also, there's a letter from the guy who saved him at the end of this kind of tale, which I want, because my grandfather, at the end of the Second World War, you know, he's just like, he didn't want to meet people that he fought with. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted nothing to do with it. You know, just wanted it out of his life, and that's okay. I had to do that. I've done it. It's gone. And then later on, he decided, well, I want to know what happened this day. So he'd found this guy and asked him, write it down. I don't want you to tell me about it. I want it written down. So it tells, you know, the story. And to cut it short, anyway, what happened was that my grandfather, the people that he was with, every single one of them had been shot dead. My grandfather had been shot, but he was the only one who was still alive at that point. He's running. He says he can remember kind of blood kind of coming up and choking on it as he's running. He gets, and I believe they were like under a bridge, and there's like a rope across the bridge, and the soldiers are using the rope to pull the boat across. And the guys under the bridge are held in by like a really kind of heavy fire. They can't get out. So my grandfather, all the other guys that my granddad was with are dead. He manages to get into where these guys are, and then says, right, okay. The guy that's in charge takes one look at him and says, right, this guy, if we don't get him medical attention, he's dead. We need someone to take him across the river. And nobody wants to take him across the river, apart from one guy that my grandfather had done his basic training with. So again, first bit of real good luck, that guy happens to be there. He says, you know, I'll do it. So he puts him in the boat, they start pulling him across. There's loads of kind of, again, they're getting shot. They're both taking kind of bullets all the time. Like my grandfather's out of it completely by this point. And a guy called Mac, who's getting, died not so long ago either, he's getting shot as well. They get across to the other side. They get over the top into the kind of like, there's a trench there. The guy that's in the trench says, right, okay, you guys, you can't stay here. You know, if you do, this guy's going to die. You've got to move now. And in the letter, he says that Mac remembers kind of getting kind of a few, you know, whatever distance, you know, a few feet over the top, and then just hearing like a massive kind of bang and being knocked over by the kind of force. And the guy that just told him to move was now just kind of blown to kind of smithereens. So you just, well, for me anyway, and I guess, you know, and they get shot, the bullet wedged in his cigarette case and, you know, in front of his heart and stuff. So you think, well, that's luck. It's just nothing but luck. All the way along, it's just been incredibly lucky. I started thinking, well, what if one of those Germans had been a slightly better shot? What if my granddad had been left-handed rather than right-handed and had the cigarette in the other pocket? What if Mac hadn't have been there? What if they'd set off 5 seconds later when they'd made their way across? Then, you know, I wouldn't be here, you know. So it's just fits in what we're talking about before. It's just, you know, it's luck, you know what I mean? That's it.
You know, it is a blend of luck. It's also a blend of skill and training. Because one of the things that after you've been through the fire, you return to training with a totally different attitude. And that's the one thing that I find people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to become more and more aggressive. It's like, no, I want to come back. And again, when I went into the Chinese arts, I went in to become more proficient. And what I was seeing was like the manifestations in the muscle and the little details that you really learn to pay attention to, that you perfect over time and you really focus. It's like, I'm doing this because I know this is needed skill out there. It's like when I went back to school after I had worked for a year managing a restaurant, and after that, going into the business class, I was sitting there looking, going, okay, that's not so important. That's really important, right? And that's the thing of when you return to training after experience, it's like, yes, you understand that it is luck, but you know, the more that you add, the more skill, the more focus, is like, okay, this applies. This is what I really need to hammer down. So I'm going to do this, focus on this, go out in the field, get an experience, come back, and then keep on adding it. And it's sort of like, Al, when you started working the doors, did your focus and training shift?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, because like I say, when I first started, I was more of a proficient boxer. Certainly, you know, I'd been blessed by having an instructor who had already gone out and done a lot of experimentation. So he'd already got a lot of experience of, so Jeff Thompson had already come back, and the class was constantly morphing into his new arts that he was following, and also what he was quickly finding worked and didn't work. So he was the one doing all the kind of experimentation, and so I was quite lucky that I trusted his judgment. And so I went out there fairly confident in that the stuff I'd been shown and the stuff I'd been told worked, and the stuff I'd been told, actually it's good fun, but it doesn't work out there. So I didn't really have to do too much of that fact-finding myself. I'd already had it done for me. Really, really lucky. The key was actually trusting my instructor to say, well, do you know what, I appreciate that, but I just need to go and double-check. I didn't need to double-check. I kind of, I took his word for it. But what quickly happened was that, I discovered that certainly from working in that job role, it required certain skills that I didn't have a massive amount of experience of, which is the manipulation, grabbing people, moving them around, manhandling them, and also feeling confident that if they grabbed me and if the distance closed and I clashed, or if we ended up on the floor, if whatever happened, that I had something to support that, so that so that I had an answer for that, and so that was where I moved into, and actually the club was doing that as well, but the job role dictated that, and I found out that as we went along, it was very much experimentation. For me, it was interesting what you said. You'd go back to school and you say, well, actually I studied that, so what I'll do is you take the analogy from going to school and thinking, right, I need to study this more, I need to study that more than my art. I kind of look at it the other way now, which is again what you're saying. You can study enough violence and you can study enough of the aggression to think, right, I've got that. I know I can switch on. I know I can be aggressive. Cool, got that down. What I want to do now is refine this. I want to get more proficient and more efficient. And what I'm trying to do now is say, okay, let's take what I'm learning in the arts and what I've learned so far and the process that I've learned it, and let's apply that to everything else in my life. So it's taking skills and lessons from the art, and not only just saying, how can I be better at fighting or better at martial arts, but also better at everything else. So how do I get a great right cross? I practice it lots. I get great instruction. I seek out the best instruction. I train it when I'm bored. I train it, I train it to boredom and past that. I constantly be self-analytical. I look at the detail. I try to constantly improve. So I take those. I don't take the right cross. That's almost a freebie. It's a byproduct. I take the process and those attributes and those skills and say, right, now I want to have a good business, or now I want to have a good, whatever. And I said, right, well, what I need to do then is I need to learn from the best. I need to practice. I need to drill it. And it's trying to take it to the next, take more from it than just the, how to be efficient at taking people out. And I think that's the beauty of the martial arts is that's there for us as well. And so for me, yeah, that's, you know, it's kind of good to look at that as a whole, really. But yeah, certainly the door work, it tells you. I think any situation eventually tells you what it needs, doesn't it? And if you're lucky, and if you've got your eyes open,